Hello, Bill Whittle members and non-members alike. I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is your Right Angle Lightning Round. For those of you who are new to this, instead of our usual deep dive into a single topic, I pick out news stories, headlines. I don't tell Bill and Scott what they are, and I hit them with these like a sniper at high speed. Well, maybe not high speed. We do tend to go on, but it's a lot of fun, and we get to cover the weirder, smaller, stranger stories that might not be worth an entire segment, and it also makes Scott squirm. So what's not to love? Let's begin. Bill, we're going to open with you this week. Oh, you know what? I said backstage I wasn't going to do this story, but it turned out I totally forgot that I put it in this week's lightning round. So here you go. Japanese beetle survives being eaten by a frog more than 90% of the time by squeezing out of the amphibian's rectum. In the year 2020, Bill, aren't we all that beetle?
Get me some of that beetle juice to get me out of 2020. That's what I have to say.
Yes.
I'm taking any way out of this year I can find. I'd rather go one way, but if you have to go the other, then that's just the way the cards, are dealt. Wow. Yeah, I think they ought to, basically take all the resources that they're putting into the COVID vaccine and see if they can just isolate the chemical responsible for this and get us out of this mess with our tied up government and Antifa and 2020 in general. I'm just taking the shortest route out of this bad boy because this has not been a fun year at all.
I had this vision as you were speaking, Bill, and it shook me. It rattled me to my very bones. It's New Year's, 4 months from now, a little bit. And you're watching the counter click down, and you got the time and the month and the day and the year, and you see the December flick down to January, and the 31 flick down to 01, and the year flick right back to 2020.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that the ball in New York in Times Square would come all the way down at about 2 seconds before it would just stop. It would just freeze there, and then like sparks would come out of it, then would explode, and then like this green toxic gas would come out, and people start dropping, with their faces would start to melt off. And like, no, 2020, we're not done with you yet, you suckers.
Nobody's getting out of this one alive.
Steve,
yes,
for some reason, I have a vivid image of the frog eating the beetle, and then another frog standing behind the first frog, waiting.
Let's move on, shall we? Scott, ratings crash for NBA and MLB after protest-filled debuts. All the players, New York Yankees, took the knee for the Marxist organization Black Lives Matter. I think the sentiment is noble. I think the organization is vile, and it turns out people aren't tuning in. Is this the world's stupidest case of unexpectedly ever?
Yeah, you would think that the leagues would look at the ratings of, news programs, and especially news programs that push these kinds of things, and say, gee, do we want a piece of that action? Or would we rather have people who just love the game tuning in to, watch the game? So it's a novel concept. I wish I knew his name or his team, but there was one guy who actually stood during the national anthem. He was an NBA player, stood during the national anthem, did not wear the obligatory Black Lives Matter t-shirt. And of course, he got a lot of harassment online about this. But my understanding is his jersey in the NBA store is selling like hotcakes.
That is your evidence. That is all you need to save your league, to save your sport. I have to tell you, I'm a baseball fan. I grew up on the St. Louis Cardinals, and it wasn't always easy during the 70s. I was one of their dry stretches. But, they came back roaring in the early 80s with 2 World Series wins and 3 World Series appearances, and they've been doing gangbusters since then, too. And I've been missing baseball all spring, all summer, and I missed baseball so much right up until they started playing again. Self-inflicted wound, guys.
Well, the good news is
you did this to yourself.
7 guys on the St. Louis ball club came down with testing positive with the coronavirus, so they had to cancel the next couple of games, I heard.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll get out of this someday. unless we don't. All right, Bill, over to you. From former New York Times reporter Alex Berenson, he tweeted 4 weeks and 300,000 COVID positive tests later, Florida has more hospital beds available than it did on July 5. How about them apples, he asks. Well, how about them?
Now you know why he's a former reporter for the New York Times. Obviously, some truth managed to escape. Maybe this guy is one of that rare breed that walks away from a malus, and he decided that, no, I think I'd rather be telling the truth as a professional than continuing to get paid by the National Enquirer, which is what I call that particular newspaper now. It's just a well. So you've got the fact that a reporter reports some journalism after he's left the Times through Twitter. But then you also have the fundamental fact of the existence in America here, Steve. And, you just have to be so careful because, number one, you don't want to be quoted out of context, which just happened to me a number of times. And number two, you don't want to sound flip about things. People have died from this. Large numbers of people have died from this. It's not a joke. But that said, I found myself in the hospital here in Sherman Oaks just for a minor thing the other day, and I was the only person in the emergency room, and I was the only person that I saw in the hospital during the 2 hours I was there. So, look, I think on some level we can all agree that we're being played with here, right? I mean, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, that was the sales pitch, not 4 months to destroy your life. And flattening the curve didn't mean waiting for the cure. They didn't say you're going to go into your house and wait till the storm passes, which will be in March of 2021. They said, let's just take this easy. And then the power hungry monsters that are drawn to politics just so enjoyed telling people what to do. Gavin Newsom issued an executive order, I want to say a month into the lockdown, saying that because of his executive order, we would be able to vote in November. Gavin Newsom issued an executive order as governor of California saying that the elections in November would continue due to his grace. And I remember thinking, well, thank you, Your Grace. I don't actually think that my right to vote in November is predicated on whether or not you think I get a chance to do it or not. So yeah, facts are nasty things. Elon Musk, before when he had that big flare up with California, he decided to send the Tesla line back to work. He basically took he used actual data, which is not playing fair really when it comes to politicians. He said, here's the California government graph for April 6th. Here's their graph for April 10th. Here's their graph for April 15th in terms of expected and so on. And here's the actual number of beds that are in use.
Facts and data, most uncouth way to argue, as Robert Heinlein said many years ago.
Not fair.
Yeah, it's just nuts. All right, Scott, let's finish up with you. I'm not a communist. That's an exact quote from potential Biden running mate, California Representative Karen Bass. She had to reassure Cuban American voters that she's not a communist. After, in 2016, she expressed her condolences to the Cuban people on the death of Fidel Castro, who, of course, killed, jailed, tortured, and starved a lot of Cuban people. I'm kind of thinking that Karen Bass is not going to be Biden's Veep pick this time around. Who knows? Biden might run again in another 30 years. Maybe she'll still be around for that. I guess my question is, how far has the Democratic Party declined when somebody who expresses sympathy for the death of a murderous dictator makes the Veep shortlist?
Well, I mean, Steve, it's possible that she's not a communist. She's just a woman with a heart, someone who cares, someone who sees human suffering and the loss of a man and the impact that has on his family and his loved ones, and reaches out in love and compassion for the poor people of Cuba who've had to suffer through the loss of the guy who killed most of them. You know, Karen Bass has some...
and impoverished the rest.
That's right. Yeah, so I only wish that the people who are remaining only wish that he had killed them. Karen Bass, my understanding is actually has risen to prominence within the House, even though most people don't know her. She's the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, and as viable a candidate for the vice presidency as any other mediocre entity in any party. You know, the vice presidency is one of those things that's not eagerly sought by most, and you've got to be a little nervous about people who would eagerly seek it. But I think the sharks are circling Joe Biden, septuagenarian that he is, and saying, you know what, maybe this isn't just the vice presidency. We'll see if that communist comment hurts her in any way with the kind of people who would guide Joe Biden in his choice of a vice presidential running mate. I don't think it's going to hurt her with him. I think it will hurt her with the general electorate in November, but the Democrats don't seem to think that way when it comes to marshaling their forces in the primary stage and up through the nomination.
Yeah,
Steve, they're going to need bigger bumper stickers too, because normally it would have just normal election year would have said Biden Bass or something. Now it'll say Sharp has attacked Biden and I'm not a communist Bass. That's going to require a little more vinyl.
The last statement like that springs to my mind is "I'm not a witch." We all remember how that particular race.
Yes, Joe Biden is going to announce his pick by saying, "I'm all about that Bass."
Wow. Yeah. Oh, Babylon Bee had the best
Joe.
headline. I saw this last week. It said Joe Biden is so close to choosing his female running mate he can almost smell her. Those guys they're nailing it. All right. This story just hit this morning, and it just made me laugh and cry some more. In Portland, the Northwest Film Center has canceled an outdoor screening of Kindergarten Cop following complaints by a local author whose name is Karen something, I'm sure. I can't remember her exact name. It's something Levine, and I'm sure her first name must be Karen. And apparently the movie is racist because cops are racist, and Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a cop who teaches kindergarten, and schools are racist. And so it's this snowballing thing of racism. And let me tell you something. This particular person, this Levine woman, I will wager has never seen this movie. And I can tell you why. Number one, it's a lighthearted kind of comedy drama mix. It's got some dark parts, and it's an unusual film, and it's held up okay, considering it's 30 years old and it's Arnold trying to do comedy. But the reason I can tell you this woman has never actually seen this movie is she had to make up this sort of convoluted racism thing when instead all she had to go to was the second funniest line in the movie of the little boy saying, "Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina." If any woke person had heard that line, their head would have exploded, spontaneously recombined to an even more hideous form, and then they would have tried to cancel the movie, but not before. So I guarantee you, this Karen Levine or whatever her name is, she's just making stuff up because hasn't seen the movie.
If I was running that festival, I would cancel Kindergarten Cop and I'd replace it with Birth of a Nation.
Oh, she actually compared Kindergarten Cop to Birth of a Nation.
Did she?
Yes, she actually went that far, and also to Gone with the Wind. So, Kindergarten Cop. Nobody has ever mentioned Kindergarten Cop in the same sentence as Gone with the Wind before woke cancel culture got a hold of. No, it's not what they got a hold of. It's just they stopped taking their lithium. That's all there is to it. All right. That's your lightning round. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, content like this needs sponsors like you. So please, right now, click over to BillWhittle.com. Join us today. We'd love to have you on board. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.